I met Yungblud quite a few years ago out here in Palm Springs, actually, at Coachella. And I was coming back from a show in Las Vegas, and I got a DM on my Instagram, which is so cool and groovy, right? That I could even fathom how to do that shit.
Yeah.
It's like, DM me, man.
Yeah.
He DM me, hey, Matt, you know, his name's Dom. And I'm like looking at him like, that's Yungblud. And he says, hey, I want you to play drums. I'm working on these tracks. And I get back to the desert here, and I get another call from Steven Tyler. And he's like, Matt, we're working on this stuff. You coming in? I'm like, what's happening? And they were collaborating. Aerosmith and Joe Perry and Steven and Young and Dom are writing all these songs.
Wow.
And Joe said to Dom, get me, I guess, which that's great of Joe, because when I played with Joe, I love Joe Perry, and anyway, he recommended, and it worked out.
Yeah.
And I went in and I cut, the first single is called My Only Angel, which got #1 rock song.
Yeah.
So, whatever that means anymore, I don't know. But what does that mean? So I did that, and then I did the Lainey Wilson version of Wild Woman that's out now.
Great.
And then I did a reimagined version of Back in the Saddle, which is me on drums, but the original with Yungblud on vocals was Steven. So it's a duet. And then I did a ballad called 1,000 Days. So I'm on 4 tracks of the 5 on the EP that's out, and it's selling. That's the album got #1 in the UK. Hey, it's Matt Sorum, and you're watching Get on the Bus. I ended up finding out about the Cult audition because I knew Steve Jones, who'd come from the Sex Pistols, and a couple other guys that were a little cooler, more. And they said, hey, the Cult's here looking for a drummer, and I thought you'd be a perfect fit. And then a buddy of mine, Pat Torpey, he was in a band called Mr. Big. He got the call for the gig because they had seen him play with Jimmy Page and Robert Plant. He said, Matt, I can't do it. I'm forming a new band. But I told him about you. So a couple people told him about me, so I got the audition. And I woodshed it. And I tell young musicians this too. Hey, I got an audition. And I said, well, learn all their records. Learn every song and walk in prepared. And check out what they look like. Do it all.
Yeah.
And be ready for whatever they throw at you. So I learned every Cult record from the beginning to the end. And at that time, I lived in a little warehouse in Burbank. And I had my drums, and I had a little loft with a cot with a futon on it.
Yeah.
And I don't even think I had a kitchen. I had like a Coleman stove or something. And anyway, I went for the audition, and I nailed it. And I ended up getting that gig. And that was the beginning of my career. You know, I think I would say it's almost like if you were Johnny Depp or an actor picking a film. You pick your film, you pick your lane, and I think that set me up. That band had credibility. They really featured me. They included me in all the photographs, and then I became like a band member.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't have any place to live. I had no responsibility, so I packed my bags and I moved to England with those guys, and I had just this amazing adventure. I become friends with many other big bands through that experience. We toured with Metallica, opened for them for almost 6 months. Became friends with Lars, still am friends with them.
Yeah.
So then these relationships start happening with the people I know through the business from my 37-year plus professional career, almost 40 years. So, yeah. Yeah. Well, I was on actually my last 2 shows of that Cult Sonic Temple tour. And they came to what used to be the Universal Amphitheater. And I remember Slash and Duff both came, and they went to the soundboard. And at the time, we had one of the most amazing sound guys who actually does Metallica now, Bill Price, and killing it on the drum sound, was just crushing. It was just huge. And I remember seeing those guys. I could see them up at the soundboard, way up top. And then I got a call from Slash. I was at my mom's house because I didn't have any place to live. Lars gave him my number, which was nice that I become friends with Lars, because in those days we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
How'd you get a hold of somebody? You know, so he called me, and anyway, I went up and I auditioned. Well, I didn't really audition. I mean, I played with him, and that was pretty much it. And they invited me to be in the band, and at that point, I made a deal to be a band member of that band. So they cut me in because I already had a band, and I realized at that point, and I would say this to any young artist, there's two words in the name music business. There's the music, and then there's the business.
Right.
The business is the part I don't really care about too much, but you have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, I mean, because of that decision and being able to say, you know, I'd like to be included in the band, and they agreed to it. So I did get a piece of that band, and that changed my life, and still has changed my life. You know, once I got into Guns, that's when that was beyond my imagination as a kid, my wildest dreams.
How old were you when this happened?
Actually, I was 29 years old when I joined GNR, which was old in those days.
Yeah, but looking back, right, it's...
Well, if you think about it, when I was a kid, I remember coming to Hollywood and being young and seeing a guy who was 27 and go, that guy's old. Like, I mean, really.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in rock and roll, anyway. I mean, think about it. Most of the great rock stars died at 27.
Yeah.
You know, so 29 was sort of a little bit like, well, I'd gotten a cult and, you know, around 27, so that was cool. And to be honest with you, and I've said this before, I'd be perfectly happy if that continued the way it was. I was on a tour bus. You know, I had a tour. I was working. The band's still going. And I'm still friends with those guys, but the cult's still out there. Would it give me the life that I have today? That's this sort of, you know, you get a lot of fringe benefits, I guess, if you will. You know, from everything from a hotel upgrade to get invited on some guy's yacht because you played in a band. You know, it's it's just a weird thing, but it's something that's carried me through and brought me other opportunities. You know, and so that's been great. Well, you know, the wheels did come off a little bit. But that's another story. But, you know, I think there's a lot of things that going into being a band member and a team player. And I can't say I'm the greatest drummer in the world by any means. But, and probably a lot of people out there would agree with that statement. But I don't really care about that because I was there at the time. And the difference is it was a vibe between us. It's more about a vibe. Okay. And does everyone get along? Is it cool? It's like Andy plays really good too. Yeah. It's all of that. It's not just, oh, he's a great drummer. And I think that was always kind of what I brought to the table. I mean, you know, when everything's getting thick, I'd make everyone laugh or something. You know, whatever that was. Yeah. You know, I would just try to be there. And I was very foundational in the cult and GNR too, but they, you know, they respected me for that foundation and that sort of, I had things, they let me say I talked about arrangements, you know, it was just open.
Was the material already done and for those two records that were about to come out, or were you working on that?
We worked on that together, yeah. You know, I mean, there was a lot of demos and stuff that we worked on, but you know, the conversation that we had in the room was just us together, you know, and it was no pecking order whatsoever. I mean, obviously, we all lend what we had to it, and that's why it came out great. We split up. We all went our separate ways, and Slash went off to do his own thing, and Duff started doing his own thing, and then I kind of veered off. I started making movie soundtracks. I did like 6 films. I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. I was just, after you're in a band of that monstrosity, you're kind of like, what am I gonna do next?
Yeah.
You know? I remember I heard about Faith No More looking for a drummer. I'm like, and I just took a break. I just got into other stuff. I built my own recording studio. I took a breather and rejuvenated. And then the Cult called me. Actually, I kind of called them, but I heard a band called Buck Cherry. And I remember calling Billy Duffy, and the band had broken up. The Cult had broken up too. I see, you guys, there's this kind of rock resurgence. It's got a bit of a swagger. Cult meets AC/DC, guitar-driven stuff. And at that point, we put the band back together, and we made an album called Beyond Good and Evil, and we toured all over the world for like about a year and a half. And then at the end of it, we just kind of went our separate ways again. And then I was sort of sitting around I had a band called Camp Freddy with Dave Navarro. It was a party band. And I'd invite Slash to play, and Duff, and they would all play. We do these really crazy, weird gigs in like Vegas and, all over.
Yeah. Like an all-star type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a bucket list thing. It was so fun. I mean, Steven Tyler would come, and Billy Idol, and, all these great singers. And then we threw a gig for a friend of mine that died, Randy Castillo. He was the drummer in Ozzy. And he died, and I remember thinking, we got to do something. He's a drummer. He's not going to get a headline. Randy Castillo, Ozzy dies. Massive worldwide headlines. The drummer dies, not a lot of headlines. Right? So I said, we got to throw a gig. We got to make a big deal out of this. Because he was a guy that I just absolutely loved, Randy Castillo. If you ever knew the guy or you ever met him, he was just the coolest dude. The most rock and roll dude I've ever met.
Okay.
So we threw this gig, and me and Slash, I called Slash and Duff, and I said, you guys, can we come play? They didn't really know Randy like I did. So they were like, yeah, sure, man, we'll play, man. And we invited Cypress Hill. They were friends of ours, and we did this crazy version of Paradise City with them, which was awesome. We ended up doing it on Jimmy Fallon, too, or one of those shows. Yeah, Jimmy Fallon. And we played the gig, and Steven Tyler showed up.
Okay.
He called, I'm down the street, man. What are you guys doing? I'm coming up, right? Shit blew up. The club was packed. It was just one of those feelings you get when you're in a room. You're like, holy shit. Fucking room is exploding. Yeah. It felt like that feeling I had the first time I saw a rock show. It was just, and the next morning, Slash called me first. Hey man, we got to do this again. And then Duff called me, and we put this band together, Velvet Revolver. And Slash was the driver, and I would say this to anybody that Slash has always been like this worker. He pushes, man. He's like, come on, 12 noon every day, let's go. 5 days a week.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, hey man, when are we gonna we gotta get going.
Yeah.
So Scott Weiland came in, and we made that record, Contraband. And Scott, just, one of the greatest. And it was difficult times, early days, but so worth it, because I feel like, for me, it was probably...
What do you mean difficult times?
Well, it was a lot of drugs and stuff we had to, I'd gotten clean.
Okay.
And everyone else was cleaned up. And we went through all of our, obvious...
Yeah.
cliche rock and roll shit. It's like a VH1 behind music kind of thing.
Yeah.
we'd all gotten cleaned up, and we made a pact that we were going to do this, like, we were at that time we were in our 40s, which was fucking really old.
Yeah.
It's like,
Okay.
oh shit. And labels didn't really give a shit if it was three guys from GNR. They didn't give
Really?
Where's the songs? Where are the singers?
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Who's the singer and where are the songs? And Weiland came in, and I remember really jump-started the band. And at that point, we became Velvet Revolver. And it's just game on. It was so exciting. And after all the work, the hard work, and I say this to people because I think a lot of people look at us like we're a bunch of guys who just wake up, play music, and it's like it just happens,
Well, yeah, you would think because
it's like, those guys don't work. But yeah, it was like amazing times. That for me was like, I guess I was a founder of my first band. Obviously I was in the other band, but it was a new band, and we had to recreate. We really couldn't be GNR. We couldn't just rest on that. And we came up with this album that was kind of instrumental of the times. There were other bands really big, Linkin Park, but we all liked Queens of the Stone Age. And the Foo Fighters were coming. It was a different rhythmic sense.
Yeah.
The rhythm wasn't this swagger, retro rock and roll thing. It was more like pumping, kind of punky.
Plus Scott coming from
Yeah, it was a good collab. And I remember when we put out the first single, Slither, and it had sort of this Slash riff with this Weiland kind of sex type thing vocal, that monotone thing he did, into this big sweeping chorus. And we made the right video, and everything was very thought out when we came up with what we wanted to be and the name of the album, the Contraband. Here it was, Contraband. It's like, all this shit that, drugs, paraphernalia. And that was really a reflection on our lives. That was sort of us from then to now. And man, if you watch the first video, we were all in the best shape of our lives. We got really serious about how are we going to compete again. We never talked about it like this, ever. But it was known. It was just, we have to be the best we can be. Let's just fucking throw it down. And I would say that hunger in that period of time, the hunger was exactly the same as when I was a kid. Fast forward 25 years. It was like, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to do this. We're all going to do this. And the album blew up.
Yeah.
It was on, when it came out of the radio, like every hour on K-Rock, I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And took off. And then, we went out and we were headlining, selling out, all that stuff. So game on, it was exciting. No, it wasn't as big as GNR, but it could have been.
Yeah.
Just didn't last long enough. But
what do you attribute to that?
I don't think it's about the size. Actually, the size, you're playing an arena, and you're plenty big enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was in GNR, tickets were still like $25.
Yeah.
We could have a whole other conversation about ticket prices, but that's on a different show. But anyway, it was, for me, it was probably the best, because I was a lot clearer minded too. I'd gone through stuff. We'd all gone through stuff. We'd all made some mistakes. The other band had broken up. We really wanted to keep it together. Unfortunately, it kind of fell into bad habits again and the same old shit, and the wheels came off. But I still reflect back on that, especially picking up the Grammy. We never got a Grammy with GNR, ever.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy.
But that was a big moment. 3 Grammy nominations, and then we won one, and it was like, people say, awards, whatever, but I don't know. It's nice to get one. rock and roll, I feel like when I see some of these younger rock and roll bands that I really like, I'm like wondering what they're doing backstage. What's going on? I hope something good, because it's like, for me, that was the dream. Yeah. It was the music, yes, but living out that dream. I think a lot of people ask me, what happened back? Yeah, we did all that, you know. And I mean, as a young man, growing up, loving rock and roll, but then having that experience too on top of it, and now I'm living another life. I've really got the T-shirt. I did that, been there, done that. And I don't have to be the older guy that's going through some midlife crisis. Yeah. Go buy a Porsche and chase young chicks. You know, it's like, it's not that. I'm good that I didn't see anything or I didn't do anything. Yeah. And my mindset going into it was, I'm going to get all this shit out of my system. I did, to the point where I had to go to rehab, and now I'm 18 years sober. But it's like, I did it a little too far. But I really can look back at it and go, well, I don't think I would have done it any other way. There was some major fuck-ups in there. Yeah. But now I'm living this family life, but I am kind of delving back into putting myself out there in a more of a major way. We can talk about that in a minute, but professionally as a musician. Because I kind of look at my window. What do I got left as a drummer? How much longer can I do this physically? Should I just throw it out there and see what cooks, you know? I read an article in the LA Times that they were cutting $50 million in elementary music programs in the LA USD. How can you cut the arts and music in Los Angeles or Hollywood, California? You know, the creator of the greatest entertainment in the world. I mean, that's just a bad look. And I pointed. You! The next day in the Los Angeles Times, it said I showed up and they didn't cut the arts. Literally, in the Los Angeles Times. $50 million. Put on hold. I get called in to John Daisy, the superintendent of schools at that time, and this is big stuff. I mean, the LAUSD is like, hello. Yeah. You know, I go into his office. Somehow we got into a conversation about Foghat. It's like, okay, I got this guy. I know my Foghat, man. And I formed Adopt the Arts that very next day with a neighbor of mine who had kids in a school. And I took a school up the street from my house at the time, which is still one of my schools, who I just gave to John Stamos as a mentor. And that was 14 years ago. And then since then, I'd done thousands of instruments in over 25 schools in LA. And then basically, my program is a curriculum that I've developed over 10 years. And the coolest part of the whole organization is the Changeless Choir, which we have an honor choir. So kids join a group, and we're up to 120 Changeless.
What is it called?
The Changeless.
Changeless.
The Angels of Change.
Okay.
And they perform with Paul Rogers. I think Lori gave you a video.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Paul and the kids have all been in my studio. We didn't use the 120 on that track. We used about 8, but it's a really great group, and it's basically, we can't do everything. We're going to try to scale this to maybe 50 schools, but basically the statement is we can't lose music for kids, K through 6. It's not happening. So the statement is we need to save music for kids in public education. It's the main part of the day where they're actually creating with other kids in a combined effort. It's not competitive. It's not test scores. The choir gives them a lot of, self-esteem, builds their confidence. They do better in life. I've heard from many parents how much better their kids are doing at home. they're proud. We have uniforms, they wear shirts, they got their own shoes. You know, they march in parades. They've been on TV multiple times. And any kid in our program can join the Changeless. It's a matter of, you know, excelling too. You have to do the best you can be. You have to be kind. You have to be good at school. You can't bully. All that kind of stuff. Well, I've done the Sound and Vision Awards for almost 12 years. So this year we're honoring Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath. Cool. And Paul Rogers lives here in the winter, and we've become really close. And I was in a band, short-lived band with Geezer Butler called Deadland Ritual. So Geezer's coming out, and then I've got all my friends. I call Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm, Corey Taylor from Slipknot, Glenn Hughes is coming. I've got Robert DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots, Nuno Betancourt, a bunch of Billy Duffy, my old bandmate from the Cult. So we're going to throw a big gig down here at the Plaza Theater. Yeah. And so there's very much a small town vibe here, and I'm a big fish in a small pond. Yeah. You know, I've had dinner with Barry Manilow. You know, I mean, it's like cool like that.
It's way cool.
Like Barry invited me to his Christmas show. Wow. You know, it's like me and Barry are friends. Yeah. So it's like, trip. Yeah, I mean Barry and Barry's doing high schools here and I'm doing elementary.
Okay.
So we're like in cahoots.
Yeah. How can other people get involved?
Go on adoptthearts.org. It's got all the information. You know, any donation is helpful because we do have expenses, and you know, we're like a big thing in town now. I mean, I'll walk around town and people don't even talk about Guns N' Roses or any band I'm in. They want to thank me for helping their kid. Any regrets? No, not really. I mean, you know, life is like an ever-evolving can of worms, you know? We all make mistakes. Yeah, sure. I've made some. I've made quite a few mistakes, but I think we all learn from those mistakes. And I'm really into about, you know, the universe taking control of it. I'm like a universe believer. You know, for whatever reason, anything happened, it's supposed to be the way it's supposed to be, and it puts me in a different place, and I end up here. And I think the best is yet to come, and, you know, when stuff comes around the corner, the next thing I know, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. It's all unexpected. You know, I'm not getting up in the morning doing the same thing, and that's a gift.